You're listening to the Broken Havoc podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the frickin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. What's up, everybody? It is Broken Havoc here, right here on the Broken Havoc podcast, here to review WWE Day 1, of course, the very first pay-per-view of 2022. This is coming to us from Atlanta, Georgia, at the State Farm Arena. Yes, Happy New Year, everybody. It's like the third time I've stated that. But Happy New Year, everybody. We're going to be discussing the Day 1 pay-per-view. There's a lot of things that came out of the show. I will say this. Now, what are my overall thoughts on this particular pay-per-view? I thought it was an okay show. It could have been better, but it was an okay show. Of course, the big news before the big news, I should say, there was another piece of big news that happened before the show. Half an hour, I believe, an hour before the show. Roman Reigns got pulled from the show because he got tested positive for COVID-19. Which sucks because I was actually really looking forward to the Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns match. Of course, Roman Reigns, if that match had happened, he's of course going to go over. But it sucks that we didn't get this match tonight, or I should say last night at the pay-per-view. But hopefully Roman Reigns can come back, and this whole freaking pandemic is ridiculous. But hey, it's the new reality that we're going to have to live for a while. But hopefully he recovers and comes back. But yeah, there was a lot of changes made to the show. Of course, Brock Lesnar still wrestled on the show. He was added to the Raw main event, the Fatal 4-Way main event, and it became a Fatal 5-Way match, which I will say the main event was actually really good. It was like insane. There was just a lot of crazy crap that happened in that match, but it was a pretty good match. Of course, Brock Lesnar beat Big E, and yes, Big E took the pinfall, which kind of sucks, but Brock Lesnar is the new champion. Now, there are many different possibilities, and honestly, to be 100% honest, the possibilities are endless. When Lesnar wins the title, which he did, Mania, it gets me a little more excited for the Royal Rumble, and it gets me a little bit more excited for WrestleMania because of the fact that these past few years, in my opinion, WrestleMania hasn't really been WrestleMania, and I've attended WrestleMania 35, and I attended WrestleMania 37 Night 1. I mean, even though those were awesome shows, I'm going to be honest, they don't really capture the glory as the WrestleManias that I grew up on when I was little, like, Mania 25, 6, and 7, Even the older ones, like 17, 18, 19. 19 is one of my favorite WrestleManias of all time. But I feel like, with Lesnar winning the title, the con about that is, Big E got shunned out by the wayside. I mean, he took the pinfall attempt, and basically he's out of the title picture, which sucks because I thought Big E was great as WWE champion. Granted, his title run could have been a little bit better, but I don't know. That's just me. Not only that, I mean, WWE had him booked to lose on television, which is ridiculous. You should never do that with the champion. If you're running a promotion, you should never have your champion lose on television, because then the viewer will look at the champion and be like, why am I taking this guy seriously if this guy just lost on television? That's the whole point I'm trying to get across. But with Lesnar winning the championship, the possibilities are endless, and a lot of people are saying unify the titles, and I 100% agree. I think it's time to unify both the WWE and Universal Championships at WrestleMania, and basically just kill off the brand split. And later on in this review, I'm going to dive deeper into this matter, and I'm going to talk about why WWE should end the brand split and all that type of stuff, because quite frankly, the brand split in 2021 between Raw and SmackDown is a complete joke. It's not taken serious as it was back in 2016. Back in 2016, when they brought back the brand split, WWE really, and I mean strongly, took it seriously, and both shows were completely different. Now, to be quite honest, the shows are the freaking same. The only difference is the colors and the wrestlers that are on the show. That's the only difference. Nothing of formula, nothing of format of the shows are completely different whatsoever. The shows are booked exactly the same. And that's a pure reason as to why WWE should end the brand split. But I'm going to dive deeper in this review when I get to the main event. But I do believe, Lesnar winning the championship, WWE unfortunately had no choice, and it basically killed off all of the plans that they not only had with Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar at this particular show, but it also killed off the plans that they were probably going to have with that specific fatal four-way match. But I think they're going to get behind, they're going to figure out a way to do it. But honestly, knowing WWE, they tend to do things backwards, if that makes any sense. But we'll see what happens. I'm actually really curious to see what happens at the Royal Rumble. And I will give you guys my fantasy booking of what I think should happen. And I basically give you a glimpse. I do believe that they should unify the belts, considering the fact that the brand split is a freaking joke. And not only that, this whole thing with the networks, and this is real, folks. The networks, fight for wrestlers. They want, like, for example, Fox wants Brock Lesnar, or USA wants this. And, like, USA is angry at Fox because, they got, like, all the top stars, and USA is left with all these people that nobody cares about. All those types of stories, WWE could literally avoid by just ending the brand split. A couple years ago, I would have said no, they shouldn't end the brand split because of the fact that they just brought it a couple years prior, back in 2016. But clearly, knowing WWE, they never follow with their formulas and they always break their own rules. So you know what? Let's just kill off the brand split. But I'll dive deeper into it later on in this review. But overall, talking about day one, again, it was an okay show. I've seen better shows, better pay-per-views of WWE. I mean, one thing of WWE in 2021 or 2022, I should say 2021, whatever, is their weekly shows are terrible. The television is god awful. I can't bear to watch a 3-hour episode of Raw. It is ridiculously hard. Like, honestly, I just don't have enough interest in watching the show because of the fact that the show is just that damn repetitive and you see the same shit over and over again. With SmackDown, after the draft, it kind of got a little bit worse. Granted, I missed a little bit of SmackDown for that first few months because of the circumstances that I was in. Of course, I was moving. But at the same time, I've seen the show recently for these past couple of weeks, and I'm gonna admit, the show really has become Raw light, in my opinion. It always was Raw light, but considering the fact that it was on Fox, number one, SmackDown is basically the flagship. And number two, they got the best star in Roman Reigns. That's their top guy right now, and that's the only, like, major star that they have. But I feel like I thought SmackDown before the draft in 2021 was at least decent, in my opinion. Granted, it still had the same problems as Raw, but at least, with the whole Roman Reigns gimmick going on, it brought some interest to me in the show. And I thought, SmackDown, like, before the draft, I thought it was an okay show. It still had its flaws. Don't get me, like, there were some weeks where I was like, nah, this episode of SmackDown sucked, all that stuff. But to be quite honest, I thought SmackDown before the draft happened in October, I thought it was all right. I thought, it wasn't great, but I thought it was all right. Raw, on the other hand, was arguably the worst show, not only in wrestling history in 2021, but the worst television show in history. That show, even now, is complete garbage. Sitting through a 3-hour Raw it's like, how do I put this into words? Watching a 3-hour Raw is basically the prime example of you having a job that you don't want to do. And what I mean by that is, look, I have to take notes on this show. I have a YouTube channel, but I have to take notes on the show that I don't like, but at the same time, I want the show to get better. And that is my case with Raw. And Raw is still, from everything. But enough of me talking about Raw and SmackDown. We got to get to the pay-per-view. So the first match of the evening was the Usos versus the New Day for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. Overall thoughts on this match, I thought this was a really good match. A really good opener to start off the show. Both the New Day and the Usos work tremendously well all the time. Every time when they're in the ring together, they always bring their A game in their matches. The feud that they've been having back in like 2017, 2018, one of the best feuds in the modern era. And in my opinion, the New Day and the Usos will go down as, like, future Hall of Famers, 100%. Those guys are stars. And, this match shows no different. Again, as I've stated earlier, the Usos and the New Day work tremendously well, and I really enjoy them. So I'm going to go through the match. Both Woods and Jimmy lock up. Shoulders down by Jimmy, but we get a near fall. Jimmy's in the corner. Kofi tags in. We get a double team attempt by the New Day. We get a kick by Kingston. We get a splash by Woods and a senton by Kofi. We get a cover and a near fall. Jimmy gains control. Kofi slides out, dropping Jimmy face first to the mat. Kofi goes to the top, but Jay takes him out. We get a spinning kick by Jay. Jay takes Kofi to the outside. We get repeated rights by Jay. Jay is the legal man at this point. We get a back suplex by Jay. Jimmy Uso then hits a cheap shot on the outside. We get a slam by Jay, and then we get a hip attack in the corner by Jay Uso. So I'm gonna keep in mind this. So when Jay Uso did the hip attack in the corner on one of the members of the New Day, and this is what I'm saying about SmackDown. One of the things that I really enjoyed about SmackDown this past year, even though it had some flaws, was the commentary. If you compare the SmackDown commentary to the Raw commentary, it's like night and day. Hell, if you compare the AEW commentary, the Dynamite commentary to the Raw commentary, it's like night and day. Like both Dynamite and SmackDown, in my opinion, had the best commentary teams. In my opinion, because Pat McAfee is passionate as hell, and you can see his enthusiasm when he's on the microphone. And when when Jey Uso hit the hip attack in the corner, Pat McAfee was like, ass to face. I mean, bruh, this guy is the best. I mean, I'm a huge Pat McAfee fan. And, dude, the guy's just amazing at what he does. Keep him on the commentary team for SmackDown because, honestly, that's like one of the better things of that show. Pat McAfee is the shit. Hell, even Michael Cole. And I really wasn't a fan of Michael Cole for years. And, with Pat McAfee alongside Michael Cole, in my view, I mean, I'm being honest, like, Michael Cole has grown on me. And Michael Cole was somebody that I always felt that was completely repetitive. But with Pat McAfee there, I just felt like Michael Cole had some sort of an identity. You know what I'm saying? And, that's one of the things that, about SmackDown that I still relatively enjoy is the commentary. Because there's somewhat of an identity right there. With the Raw commentary team, now granted, Michael Cole still says some things that are repetitive, but it's really not his fault because, of course, Vince McMahon is in his ear telling him to say these lines and shit. But if you look at the Raw commentary team, the only one that's holding that 3-man team on Raw is Corey Graves. Jimmy Smith, as much as, he tries his best, in my opinion, I'm not really that big of a fan of Jimmy Smith. He's definitely better than Adnan Virk, but he's not really as good. Byron Saxton, he could be the nicest guy in the world, and I don't want to mean this personally, but I am not a fan of Byron Saxton. I'm sorry. I'm just not a fan of Byron Saxton whatsoever. I don't, in my opinion, feel his enthusiasm whenever he's on commentary. Again, the Raw commentary team is the worst commentary team ever. I'm sorry. Pat McAfee and Michael Cole are awesome. That's just my opinion. All right. Enough of me putting Pat McAfee over. All right. The Usos are in the crowd. Kofi goes for a jumping knee. Jimmy tags in. He hits a super kick on Woods. He drags Kofi back in the corner. We get a chop in the corner by Kofi. We get a kick to the midsection. After that, Jay is the legal man. He takes Kofi to the top. Kofi counters Jay and hits a tornado DDT. At this point, the hot tag is made. Woods with a couple of kicks. Jimmy takes Woods into the corner. We get a boot by Woods. Woods hits a clothesline and then takes Jay to the middle rope. Then we get a drop kick to the back of Jay. Then we get a side Russian leg sweep on Jimmy Uso. And then Woods hits a Falcon Arrow. So at this point, Xavier Woods is going crazy. So we get a cover into near fall. We get a shotgun drop kick on the Usos by Woods. Then Jimmy catches Woods. He takes Woods to the back of the ring. No, he takes Woods back in the ring. My apologies. Then he tries to hit the Samoan drop, but Woods escapes. Jimmy's on the top. Jimmy hits a freaking beautiful corkscrew off the top, which looked amazing. I haven't seen Jimmy do that. I don't even think he ever did that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he hit a really beautiful corkscrew off the top. We get a cover into near fall. Jay tags in. We get a pump up Samoan drop by Jay and Jimmy Uso. So basically, Jimmy just threw, I think it was Woods. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then, no, it was Jimmy that threw. I believe it was Woods. And then, Jay hit the Samoan drop. That was freaking awesome. Correct me if I'm wrong. I got one of the Usos confused. but it was a really nice spot, the pump up Samoan drop. That was a really good spot, one of the best spots in the match. We get a cover into near fall. We get a right hand by Jay. We get a right hand by Woods. Both proceeds to exchange shots. We get Woods hits a clothesline after that. Kofi tags in. He goes to the top. Kofi hits a crossbody after that. We get a cover into near fall. Then after that, we get a drop kick on Jimmy Uso. Kofi hits a leg drop. Then he tries to go for the Trouble in Paradise, but Jay counters. Jimmy tags in and hits the Uso splash off the top. We get a cover and a near fall. We get a chop block by Jimmy. Then he applies a single leg Boston Crab. Kofi makes it to the bottom rope. Jay tags in. Woods takes Jimmy to the outside. He sends him to the barricade, and then the steel steps. We get a roll up twice by Kofi Kingston. Both were near falls. Then after that, we get the SOS by Kofi. Then we get a cover into near fall. Then Woods tags in. We get a kick by Woods. Woods then hits a stop off the top. Then we get a cover and another near fall. Then Woods picks up Jay. Kofi tags in. Jimmy tags in after that. Then we get a super kick by Jay. Then the Usos hit a double super kick after that. Jay tags in. Both the Usos go to the top. They both hit a double Uso splash from both corners of the ring after that. So then we get a cover by Jay. Then we get another crazy ass near fall when Kofi kicks and interferes. So the match is still going on. Both teams get up. Both brawl on the outside. Woods falls and gets hit with the super kick by Jimmy Uso. Jimmy tags in. We get a boot by Jimmy. Then the Usos hit a freaking 3D. They deadass hit the 3D. Yes, the finisher of the Dudley Boys. They hit the freaking 3D. Then we get a cover, and the Usos retain the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. Overall thoughts on this match. This was a really good opener to kick off day one, in my opinion. Again, the Usos and the New Day always work well together in the ring. They always have great chemistry all the freaking time. And this was a really good match, and I really enjoyed this opener. Fantastic match, and hats off to both the Usos and the New Day for this freaking awesome-ass match. All right. We got a backstage interview with Big E. He gives his thoughts on Brock Lesnar being added to the match. He says that he can line every single one of them and knock all of them down. Says he will work through fire and find a way to walk out of Atlanta and still the WWE Champion. Then we get a backstage interview with the rappers Migos. Yes, Migos were special guests in this event. They were basically talking about, how they like WWE since they were kids, blah, blah, blah. All right, here's one match that I absolutely was not interested in whatsoever. This was a match that, honestly, I just did not give no two shits about. I did not care at all. Quite frankly, these past few segments that I have seen on SmackDown regarding Madcap Moss and Baron Corbin have been one of the worst segments that I have ever seen in my entire life. And it goes to show you that when WWE does comedy, they do comedy that is not funny. They do comedy that is like extremely cheesy and just so terrible to the point where it got so bad that the commentators even shit on it on television. That's how bad it was. Now, granted, this match between Madcap Moss and Drew McIntyre, although I did not even give no two shits about this match, I will say this, Madcap Moss looked great in the ring. I will say that. But it's his gimmick that is just annoying as hell. Not only that, I'm not even going to state the promo that he even cut, considering the fact that, number one, I didn't even take notes on it. And number two, I don't feel the desire to give you what he said, considering the fact that it's that damn bad. I don't have to tell you that it's that damn bad. I know that you guys know that it's that damn bad. But we got Madcap Moss versus Drew McIntyre. Corbin and Moss cut a shitty promo. One of my biggest gripes, especially with King Corbin or Baron Corbin, or when he was King Corbin, was the fact that, he's a heel. And yes, he always got heat. But he never got genuine heel heat. If you compare a guy like King Corbin or Baron Corbin, whatever the hell you want to call him, to a guy like MJF, MJF gets legitimate heel heat. MJF is the type of heel that you, the viewer, would pay either for a pay-per-view or pay for an event to see him get his ass kicked. King Corbin gets go-away heat. And I've stated this before on my SmackDown reviews months ago. Baron Corbin always gets that go-away heat. This is no different. Madcap Moss and Baron Corbin get go-away heat, and they just literally, I do not want them on my television screen. That's how bad this was. I hated this segment. That whole promo that they cut. I'm not even going to state it because quite frankly, I'm not even interested in it. That's just my opinion. But the match starts. Both lock up. We get a waist lock by Moss, and then we get a right hand by Moss. We get a side headlock by Moss. We get a shoulder tackle by Drew. We get a kick by Moss. Moss works on Drew in the corner. He takes Moss in the corner, works on Moss. We get a chop by Drew into the corner. McIntyre then hits a clothesline. Then he hits a suplex. We get a cover into near fall. McIntyre hits a devastating, crazy-ass chop. And I will say this, in the beginning stages of the match when McIntyre was hitting those chops on Moss, bro, you could hear that shit like crazy. Now, usually, whenever you watch any wrestling match, whether it be from the 90s, 2000s, you can hear the chop. But these chops by Drew McIntyre were something else. I don't know what that was, but like those were some stiff ass chops that I heard on television. That's what I will say right there. But Drew takes Moss to the outside. We get a belly to belly suplex by Drew on the outside. He takes Moss back inside. We get a kick by Moss. Sends Drew to the ring post. Then Drew and Moss get in the ring. Sends Drew into the corner. We get repeated rights by Moss. Moss hits a suplex. We get a cover and a 1 count. Then after that, we get a shoulder tackle by Moss. We get a cover and a near fall. Moss is in control. Moss with the knees. Moss then runs into the corner. We get a suplex by Drew. Drew goes for the belly to belly. Then a second belly to belly. Then we get a neck breaker. Then Moss counters the Future Shock DDT, but then Drew hits a really nice spine buster, a nice modified spine buster. We get a cover and a near fall. We get a chop by McIntyre. He takes Moss to the corner. Moss catches Drew and hits a follow-away slam. We get a cover into near fall. Drew applies a backslide pin attempt. We get a near fall. Then Drew hits, finally, the Future Shock DDT. We get a chop by Drew. Drew and Moss are on the top. Moss counters a super plexiglass attempt. Then we get a couple of chops by Moss. McIntyre gets up and takes Moss to the bottom. Then Drew runs into a boot, but then Drew hits the Claymore kick. We get a cover, and Drew McIntyre wins the match. Overall thoughts on this match, I will say this, as much as I'm not a big fan of Baron Corbin and Madcap Moss, I think their gimmick is stupid as hell. I'm not even going to call him Happy Corbin. I'm just going to call him Baron Corbin. I think the gimmick is ridiculously stupid. Not only that, the promos that, Madcap Moss, or I'm just going to say Moss cuts, is extremely cringe. I'm just going to say that right here, right now. I will say this. Moss was very impressive in the ring. He was not bad at all. He knows how to work, and that's great. But, again, the gimmick, it just doesn't do it for me. The whole thing with Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss, it's a flat out, it's cheesy, and it's a joke, in my opinion. It's stupid. But whatever. This is the match that really nobody gave a shit about, considering the fact that, the crowd is just flat out dead during this match. Nobody cared for this match in Atlanta. We get a backstage interview with Kevin Owens talking about Brock Lesnar. He's basically pissed off that Brock Lesnar's in the match, and then he goes to talk about Seth Rollins. And then we get a video package talking about Seth Rollins. So throughout this entire show, we've been getting video packages of the guys that are in this Fatal 5-Way match and all that stuff. It's like they're hyping up this whole match throughout the show. It's kind of unique. But, I mean, in my opinion, I'm more used to the whole video package before the main event. That's just my preference. They basically put video packages for each individual wrestler throughout the entirety of the show, which honestly I have no problem with, but the other formula I just like better. Here's another match that I really enjoyed. This was a really, really good match as well. The Street Profits versus RK Bro, of course, that being Randy Orton and Matt Riddle, or Riddle, I should say. RK Bro come out with the rappers Migos. So basically, Migos are going out with RK Bro, and they're having a really good time. All right. One thing I will say about the Street Profits never disappoint. And I've been stating this on my previous reviews for the past couple of months. Montez Ford is going to be a star, not only for his promos, but also for his in-ring ability. What really interests me a lot about Montez Ford's work is the fact that he has a really unique style when it comes to wrestling, and his style is really unique when he works in the ring, and that's what I really enjoy about Montez Ford. I think it's really interesting to see him wrestle. But yeah, enough of me talking about that. I'm going to be talking about this match. Dawkins and Riddle start. We get a side headlock by Riddle. Then we get a shoulder tackle by Dawkins. Ford tags in. We get a drop kick by Ford. We get a cover and a near fall. Dawkins tags in. Orton tags in. Both lock up. We get a side headlock applied by Dawkins. Then a spinning back elbow by Dawkins. We get a side headlock by Dawkins. Then Randy tries to go for the RKO, but basically Dawkins kind of gets he flinches right there. Ford tags in. Ford then dances in the ring, which is hilarious. Both lock up. Ford at this point is in control. We get a chop by Ford in the corner. We get a drop kick by Randy Orton. We get a cover and a near fall. We get a stomp by Orton, and then we get a second stomp by Orton. Riddle tags in. Riddle then hits the floating bro with the help of Randy Orton. We get a cover and a near fall. Dawkins tags in. Then Dawkins catches Riddle. Riddle then goes for a couple of kicks in the corner. Dawkins hits the silencer. Then Ford tags in. We get a senton over the top rope by Montez Ford. We get a cover and a near fall. Ford applies a waist lock. Riddle hits a sunset flip. Then we get a moonsault by Montez Ford. Ford then hits a splash. Dawkins tags in. We get a cover by Dawkins and a near fall. Then Riddle fights back with a couple of kicks. We get repeated rights by Dawkins, and then we get a cover and a near fall. We get a spinning splash in the corner by Dawkins. Ford tags in. We get repeated rights by Ford. Works on Riddle. We get a cover and a near fall. Then we get an overhead kick by Riddle on Dawkins. The hot tag is made. Then Orton works on Dawkins after that. Orton goes for a power slam on Ford. Then he goes for a power slam on Dawkins. Then he takes Dawkins to the apron. We get a double DDT by Orton on both of the Street Profits. Then we get a running kick on the apron by Riddle. Orton is on the top with Ford. Ford misses. Randy Orton hits the RKO. 1, 2, 3. RK Bro retained the Raw Tag Team Championships. Overall thoughts on this match, I thought this was a pretty good match. My only gripe with it was kind of like the build of it. Having a tag team make their own tournament, to me, kind of doesn't really take things seriously. And I really like seriousness when it comes to wrestling. And this whole RK Bro tournament, or Bronament, whatever the hell you want to call it, as much as I love Riddle and all that stuff, I think it was kind of a joke to have a tournament like that made by the tag team. Considering the fact that, again, I like wrestling when it's taken seriously instead of being treated as a joke. But I will say this, the Street Profits looked really good in this match. Again, Montez Ford is like the MVP of the Street Profits. Nothing against Angelo Dawkins, because he's fantastic at what he does too. But I think Montez Ford just knows what he's doing, and I definitely do believe that this guy is going to be a future main eventer in the next couple of years. All right. So we got a backstage interview with Drew McIntyre. He basically gets attacked by Moss and Corbin, and they just decimate him. That's a WWE term. But they just basically decimate him. We get a backstage interview with Brock Lesnar. It's very rare. Usually we have seen Brock Lesnar do backstage segments on SmackDown for these past couple of weeks, but it's kind of weird. For me, just seeing Brock Lesnar have a backstage interview, it is just so weird. But he takes the mic and says what Brock Lesnar basically does Paul Heyman's catchphrase. It says Brock does what Brock does. He says he's a free agent thanks to Paul Heyman. Then he's going to go to the ring and going to walk out as the WWE champion. And that is not a prediction. That is a spoiler. Spoiler alert, he won the title. And I'll talk about that later on. All right. Here's one match that a lot of people didn't really like, but I will say this: it was an okay match. It was a great match. I will say this: was it the best match? No, absolutely not. It wasn't. But I will say this: I've seen way worse. To be quite honest, I've seen way worse matches than this. I felt like Edge did pretty good in the ring. Same as Miz. Miz is a great worker. Edge, what can I say about Edge? The guy's an amazing worker, of course. The guy's a fucking legend. But it really wasn't Edge's best match, but it was not a bad match. It was a great match, I will say that, but it wasn't the best match of the night. Bar none, this wasn't the best match of the night, in my opinion. But Edge comes out to the Brood entrance, which looked pretty dope. So yeah, this match with Edge and The Miz, to be quite honest with you, the only reason why this feud is happening is for WWE to really try to gain steam over AEW after the whole promo segment on that Thanksgiving episode of Dynamite between MJF and CM Punk. That's the only reason why this feud is happening. if CM Punk didn't name drop Miz in that promo on AEW television, you wouldn't see the Miz wrestling on this show. Bar none, and I guarantee you that. You wouldn't see Edge wrestling on this show. Not only that, the build for the show wasn't really that great. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Look, I was one of those people that actually supported the segment with Edge and The Miz. But at the same time, I saw right through WWE, and I know why they did that segment. I mean, CM Punk just name dropped The Miz, and then they brought in The Miz the next week. I mean, that's why this feud is happening. And, I thought the match was great. But, in the go-home show for Raw, you had a freaking wedding. Why did you have a wedding? You know how wrestling weddings turn out, but, why would you have a wedding? Is that really the go-home show for a match that you're building up for a pay-per-view? You're going to have a wedding on the go-home show? Again, if the bro, I swear, this is going to be a catchphrase. If the WWE Network or Peacock didn't even exist and you had to pay $40 fucking for this, would you really be sold on the build for this match? I'm asking you, the viewer, watching this video, would you be sold on that? The answer is no. At least for me. You guys may be a little different, or you guys may be agree. If you guys disagree, all power to you. But again, you had to pay $40 fucking for a pay-per-view like Day One, and you had a feud like Edge and The Miz, and it really wasn't built up as well. And the go-home show before the pay-per-view, you had a wedding segment. To be quite honest, I wouldn't pay for the match. I wouldn't pay for it. I wouldn't spend my money on it. I'm going to be honest. I wouldn't. But enough of me talking about that. I'm going to be talking about the match. The match starts. Both lock up. We get a side headlock by Edge. Edge applies a shoulder tackle. Miz with the hip toss. Both lock up again. We get a side headlock again by Edge. We get a shoulder tackle by Edge. We get a hip toss by Edge. And then a second hip toss. So multiple different hip tosses in the beginning stages of the match. We get a cover and a 1 count. Edge tries to apply the crossface, but Miz escapes. We get a kick by Miz. Then we get a stomp by Miz. We get a jackknife cover by Edge. We get a near fall. Edge tries to get the crossface applied, but Miz escapes again. We get a couple of rights by Edge. Miz sends Edge to the outside. We get a right hand by Edge. Miz pushes Edge to the ring post, then to the barricade. Edge is back in the ring. Miz goes to the top. We get a double axe handle off the top by Miz. We get a stomp by Miz. We get a couple of knees by Miz. We get a kick by Miz. We get a cover and a near fall. Miz works on the left knee of Edge. Edge tries to fight back with a couple of rights. We get a right hand by Edge. Miz sends Edge in the corner. Miz runs into the second turnbuckle after that. Edge drives Miz to the mat. We get a cover into near fall after that. We get a right hand by Edge. Edge takes Miz to the mat. We get a cover into near fall. Edge hits a double underhook. Then Miz tries to go for the skull crusher finale, but Edge escapes. Miz then hits a DDT. Then we get a cover and a near fall. We get a kick by Miz. So Miz then goes for the yes kicks. So that was pretty funny. We get a roll up by Edge. We get a near fall. Edge tries to apply the crossface. Then Edge gets sent to the outside. Edge then drives Miz to the apron. Then takes Miz to the floor. We get a cover into near fall. Edge then sends Miz to the corner. Miz then fights back. He sends Edge to the outside. Miz then takes Edge headfirst on top of the announce table. Then Miz goes on top of the announce table. Then Edge sends Miz's face first to the announce table. Then Edge sends Miz to the ring. Edge is on the top. Edge then hits a crossbody after that, which looks sick. Then we get a cover and a near fall. After that we get counter after counter by both Edge and Miz. Then we get a roll up by Edge. We get a near fall. We get another roll up, but then we get a near fall. But then Edge gets taken to the ring post. Miz hits a chop block. Then Miz applies the figure 4 leg lock after that. We get a slap by Miz. Edge tries to reverse it. Edge finally reverses it. And then Miz tries to... So while Edge reversed the figure 4, what Miz tried to do, and he successfully did it, he tried to apply the STF submission. But then Miz hits the... instead of applying the STF, he then slingshots Edge off the top. Or to the top, I should say. We get a cover by Miz, but gets caught by the referee when his foot was on the rope. So Miz at this point was cheating during the match. Then Edge applies the crossface. We get a roll up by Miz. Edge then goes at it again. Then Miz puts the foot of Miz on the bottom rope. So Edge basically applies the crossface, and then Miz he puts the foot of the Miz on the bottom rope. Then Miz takes Edge across the top rope. We get a backslide by Edge, but we get a near fall. Then we get a double boot by both Miz and Edge. Edge with a couple of rights. Miz with a kick. Then Miz hits the yes kicks. We get a clothesline in the corner by Miz. Miz goes to the top. Edge with the right hand. Edge then hits a hip toss on top of Miz. Then Edge misses a spear. We get a slap by Maurice when the referee wasn't looking. We get a skull-crushing finale by Miz. We get a cover anti-near fall. Then what happens? Beth Phoenix, yes, Edge's wife, comes out. And it's so crazy. So she came out, right? She came out and her music did not even play until like a couple of seconds after she was shown on camera, which is really weird. But her music played. Then after that, she chases after Maurice. Miz looks at her. What happens? Edge hits a freaking spear out of nowhere. We get a cover, and Edge wins the match. Again, I thought this match was pretty good. I thought it was a great match. A lot of people may disagree with that, and that is totally up to you. That is fine. That is your opinion. I thought it was an okay match. Quite frankly, I've seen way worse. I've seen way worse matches, but it's great seeing Beth Phoenix back on WWE TV. Of course, she was a commentator for NXT. But she's now in the storyline with Edge, Miz, and Maurice. Where do I think this will lead to? I think this will definitely lead to a mixed tag team match with Edge and Beth Phoenix going up against Maurice and the Miz at WrestleMania. That's just what I think. Plans may change. Who knows? But we're just gonna have to wait and see. We get a backstage interview with MVP and Bobby Lashley. Basically, MVP basically cuts its typical MVP heel promo, putting over Lashley. Then he says he's a once-in-a-lifetime athlete. He basically said that twice. Lashley welcomes the addition of Brock Lesnar and says it will be the first day and the rest of the Almighty era. All right, great. All right. We got Liv Morgan versus Becky Lynch for the Raw women. I was about to say tag team. For the Raw Women's Championship. This match, I will say, was another. It was not a bad match at all. Could it have been a better match? Yes, but I will say this: Liv Morgan looked great in the ring, and I've been very vocal about Liv Morgan when it comes to her promo skills. And from the promos that I've heard Liv Morgan basically cut on Raw these past couple of weeks, I really wasn't as invested in Liv Morgan because of the promos. But then I came with the realization that, at the end of the day, it's not Liv Morgan's fault. She's given shitty scripted lines from writers that have absolutely no idea how to write a wrestling show. And look, there can be challenges when you write a wrestling show, but at the same time, you need to have some sort of knowledge. These writers in WWE have no wrestling experience whatsoever, that they had to come from Hollywood and writing screenplays and shit. That's another clear difference with WWE and AEW. WWE has writers, AEW has professional bookers. That's the clear difference right there. But I thought this match was a pretty good match. It was not a bad match, but Liv looked really good in the ring. A couple of the spots that Liv Morgan has done really impressed me, in my opinion. And look, Liv Morgan is great at what she does. If they hadn't given her scripted lines, I honestly felt like she could cut a better promo. I genuinely believe that. That's just my opinion. All right. Both lock up. We get a slap by Becky. Liv takes Becky face first to the mat. Becky's on the outside. Takes Becky head first to the announce table. Becky tries to retreat. We get a kick by Becky. Then Liv counters the manhandle slam. We get a back elbow by Liv in the corner. We get a step-up knee by Liv in the corner. Liv hits a shotgun dropkick. We get repeated stomps by Liv Morgan. We get a cover and a near fall. Liv then gets caught in a backslide. Then Liv tries to apply the disarmer, but we get a roll-up by Becky, but we get a 1 count. Liv then applies a submission attempt. Then Becky's foot was on the rope. We get a right hand by Liv Morgan. Then we get a high kick after that by Becky. Goes to the top. Liv then throws Becky off the top. Then we get a cover and a 2 count. Then Liv runs into the corner. Becky then drives Liv into the corner. Cover by Becky and a near fall. Then we get a kick by Becky, an elbow by Liv Morgan. Then Becky hits a leg drop across the back of the neck of Liv. So she basically pulled somewhat of a Nyla Rose right there. Becky always has been doing that move, by the way. We get a cover into near fall. We get repeated rights by Becky. We get a right hand by Becky. Becky hits an exploder suplex. Then Becky works on Liv in the corner. Then Liv takes Becky to the corner. We get a roll up by Liv. We get a near fall. We get repeated rights by Liv Morgan. Liv hits an enziguri. Then we get a shotgun drop kick after that by Liv. We get a kick by Becky. Then Becky hits a suplex after that. Then after that, we get Becky applies the armbar or the disarmer. Liv rolls her up. We get a near fall. She takes her to the mat. Then we get a cover and another near fall. At this point, both are on the top. We got a sunset powerbomb off the top by Liv Morgan off the top. She deadass hit a sunset powerbomb, which looked awesome. That was one of my favorite spots of the match. I really enjoyed that. We get a cover and a near fall. Becky applies the disarmer. We get a bunch of inside cradle reverses by both Becky and Liv Morgan. Of course, they were all near falls. Then we get a slam by Becky. We get a cover into near fall. Then we get a suicide dive by Liv. We get a couple of stomps by Becky on the steps. Then after that, Becky goes to the top. Liv drops Becky off the top, applies the armbar. We get a cover by Becky in a near fall. Then Becky counters Liv's move when she's in the middle rope. And then, Liv gets caught. Becky hits the manhandle slam. 1, 2, 3. Becky Lynch retains the Raw Women's Championship. To be quite honest, I will say this. I actually thought Liv Morgan was actually going to go over in this show, in this particular match on this show. But that, of course, that's not going to be the case. But keep in mind, if Liv Morgan went over, guaranteed you we would have had a rematch on at the Royal Rumble later on this month, and Liv Morgan would have dropped the belt to Becky back. The same thing happened with Edge when he won his first WWE title. He won it at New Year's Revolution, and like 3 weeks later, he'd lost it to John Cena at the Rumble. I mean, the same thing would have happened to Liv Morgan if she won the title tonight. But Becky won the match, and I will say this: I loved the finish. I will say this: I really loved the finish of the match, in which you had Becky basically catching Liv, where as soon as Becky was in trouble, Becky catches Liv, hits the manhandle slam, and basically wins the match. That was a great finish. And really, I think it's going to elevate the story regarding Liv Morgan. Maybe you never know. This can lead to Liv Morgan eventually winning the Royal Rumble match and going on to WrestleMania to face Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's Championship at Mania. Who knows? Again, the possibilities are endless. Hopefully, WWE puts some effort into it. All right. The main event of the evening is the Fatal 5-Way. Originally, it was supposed to be a Fatal 4-Way match, but no, it is a Fatal 5-Way match. So it's Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, Big E, Brock Lesnar, and Bobby Lashley. I literally didn't write all the participants in the beginning of this match. I just put Fatal 5-Way match, my dumbass. What can I say about this match? I actually thought that this match was really good. This match was really good. I enjoyed this match for what it was. There's a lot of crazy ass shit that happened from the moment the bell rung, and that's what I really liked about this match. It kind of reminded me of that Fatal 4-Way match for the Universal title way back in 2017 at SummerSlam, if you guys don't remember. That was a really good ass match when, of course, Lesnar basically got taken out, but then comes back out of nowhere. Or I can mention that triple threat match that John Cena, Seth Rollins, and Brock Lesnar had at the Royal Rumble back in 2015. That was one of the best matches that I've ever seen. Having Brock Lesnar basically just getting taken out by both Seth Rollins and John Cena, and then just coming back out of nowhere. I mean, that is what basically happened on this match. And you know what? I love to see it. And I'm going to say one thing right now. I'm really honest about this. I'm really enjoying the babyface work that Brock Lesnar is doing. I'm really enjoying babyface Brock Lesnar. I don't know why. Something about it. I'm actually really enjoying babyface Brock Lesnar. All right. Now to start off with the match. Basically, as soon as the match starts, a whole brawl breaks loose. Lesnar goes for Suplex City like crazy. He tries to hit the F5, but then Lesnar suplexes Kevin Owens. Big E takes Lesnar to the outside. Lashley on the outside picks up Big E and throws Big E to the post. Lashley then spears Lesnar through the barricade in the timekeeper's area. So Lesnar basically just got taken out by Lashley. We got a double super kick by Kevin Owens on Rollins. Brock then is crawling on the outside. We get a suicide dive by Rollins on Lesnar. Then we get a frog splash on Lesnar by Kevin Owens on the outside, which looked crazy as fuck. Then both take the steel steps, but that being both Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens, because they have been working together for these past couple of weeks. So they both take the steel steps, both hit Lashley, then they hit Lesnar. They both try to clear the announce table. Both try to double suplex Lashley, but Lashley escapes. Then Big E comes in, hits a Uranagi through the announce table, which was another crazy spot. We get a double DDT by KO on and Rollins. Then we get a Uranagi by Big E on Rollins. We get a pump-up powerbomb by Kevin Owens on Big E. We get a cover and a near fall. KO goes to the top. We get a senton by KO, but he gets the knees up after that. Or Big E, I should say, gets the knees up. And then then Rollins hits a frog splash on Big E. We get a rolling elbow by Rollins. He tries to go for the stomp, but gets caught by Lesnar. Then Brock Lesnar just goes for F5 City. We get an F5 on Rollins, and then we get another F5 on Big E. Owens comes in. Then we get another F5 by Lesnar on Kevin Owens after that. We get a spear by Lashley on Lesnar. We get a cover and a near fall. Lashley then applies the Hurt Lock on Brock Lesnar. Then what happens after that? Big E comes in. He picks up Lashley. Big E hits the big ending on Lashley. Then Lesnar, Lashley then escapes, I think it was. Then we get an F5 by Lesnar on Big E. We get a cover by Brock Lesnar, and Brock Lesnar is your new WWE champion. Wow. What are my thoughts on this match? I thought this was a really good main event to close off day one. I thought it was a really good main event. It was a fatal 5-way match. And with Brock Lesnar being added, when it comes to multi-man matches, the guy goes freaking berserk. I guarantee you that. And like every multi-man match that Brock Lesnar is in, the guy just goes 10 times from what he usually does in a freaking one-on-one match. That is just how I see it. But overall, I thought this match was pretty good. It was a really good match. Brock Lesnar is the new champion. Granted, WWE had no choice. People, wanted to see Brock Lesnar. And unfortunately, Roman was out dealing with COVID. Hopefully, he recovers. But Lesnar's the new WWE champion. What are my thoughts on this? My thoughts are, I think look, there are pros and cons to having Brock Lesnar as the WWE champion. The con is, Big E was the one that got pinned. And it basically makes Big E look less strong. Not only that, it made his whole title reign useless. Not only that, it destroyed all the plans that you basically had with all these wrestlers on this particular match when it was a fatal 4-way. You basically destroyed all the plans. Not only the plans with Roman Reigns were all destroyed, but the plans in this particular match were all destroyed because of the fact that Lesnar was added in. But at the same time, there are pros with it. I'm one of those people that will say that they should unify the titles. And this is why. The brand split in 2021, I've stated this earlier in my review, but I'm going to go more in depth. The brand split in WWE is a joke nowadays. There's no distinction within the rosters. There is real life tension within the networks just because of the fact that they want the bigger stars. And really, that's not the important thing here. You got to have a good show regardless. No matter what stars you have, you got to have a good show. And it's just like pettiness by the networks. You know what I'm saying? Instead of fighting over a top guy, like a top wrestler, and I'm talking to the networks, instead of fighting a top guy, what WWE should do is just merge both rosters. We're probably going to be seeing the same matches over and over again because in WWE's eyes, that is good booking. But, at the end of the day, you get a lot of new, fresh matches. And that's the beauty of everything. WWE does not need to operate a freaking brand split considering the fact that they don't even know how to do a brand split. WWE for years does not know how to do a proper brand split. There is no real difference between Raw and SmackDown. Not only that, I was back in 2016 and later on in the years, I was always an advocate for having 2 world titles. Now I'm an advocate for having 1 world title, considering the fact that, if you're the industry leader and you have 2 main champions, that's kind of weird in my opinion. I'd rather have 1 world champion to represent the entire company. And with Roman Reigns, you have that, and you have the potential to unify both titles and have Roman Reigns win both titles. But at the end of the day, when you have Roman Reigns win both titles, Roman Reigns is not going to lose those titles for a long time, considering the fact that WWE has nobody built to beat Roman Reigns. And that is the issue at hand. WWE needs to build a new top guy that is so over with the crowd that they are able to dethrone Roman Reigns in storyline. That is the only way. But knowing WWE, they're not going to do that because they are lazy as shit. But yeah, those are my thoughts on that. I definitely do believe that they should unify the titles. But yeah, that was my day 1 pay-per-view review. Overall thoughts on this match. I thought this was a pretty good show. Not a pretty good show. It was not the best show. I'm taking that back. It was not the best show. Some of the matches were okay. Some of the matches were great. Some of the matches were just matches that I did not give a shit about whatsoever. But yeah, overall thoughts, I thought it was an okay show. It was not the best show in the world. The main event was a really good match. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, before I get out of here, I just want to say one thing. I'm going to be attending... Actually, no. Before I talk about Dynamite, my Rampage review will be up tomorrow. My Rampage review will be up tomorrow on Monday because I did not review Rampage. SmackDown, there was no real episode of SmackDown, so there's going to be no SmackDown review, of course. And not only that, I'm going to be attending Dynamite on Wednesday. Of course, that is the TBS debut. So I'm planning on doing a vlog for this channel to upload on here. So once I finish with all that, hopefully I get that done, because the last time I wanted to do a vlog, but I never got around to do it. Hopefully now I'm able to do a vlog in this particular case. And once I do, I will upload it right here on the Broken Havoc podcast channel. And be on the lookout. Yes, I'm going to be doing a new series. I have Old School Showcase. I'm thinking about a pay-per-view that I'm reviewing. I'm thinking about doing actually ECW One Night Stand 2006 for episode 1 of Old School Showcase. So I'll let you guys know in future videos on that particular case. And yeah, that was my day 1 review from January 1st, 2022. Please like, comment, subscribe, and be on the lookout for more videos. And this is Broken Havoc from the Broken Havoc podcast, signing out.